quick. Yeah. So let me share the screen. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome you all into our PMP Espresso session. As you guys know, 30 minutes will save you 3 hours in the studies. So that's my new statement with the Espresso. So I would say let's crack on. In terms of the agenda, again, I'm going to set expectations because that's something I like to talk about to make sure we all understand what we are go against. And today I'm going to talk about conflict resolution strategies, which is very crucial because something which PMI like to ask lots of questions is around communications, managing conflicts in relation to leadership, because we do it differently on Agile, differently on Waterfall. Oh, sorry. So that's exactly what is going to be important. And then hopefully we're going to have time to do some questions as well. So setting expectations. Now, this is a slide which I always like to run through from the aspect of giving you guys a bit of a reality check that overall the exam is big. Preparation takes lots of time, and I think the reason why it takes lots of time for most people is the lack of clarity. That there are 100,000 football coaches in the PMP preparation world. You're gonna receive 1,000 different advices. You should do this, you should read this, you should watch this, you should enroll here, you should, but 100 different ways. And I think overall the best way you're gonna be, find your way is going with what is on the PMI website. The PMI website giving so much clarity in terms of what to expect on the exam, how the questions are distributed, how the questions are looking like, and anything and everything about the exam. Because on the PMI website is also explicitly say, how many breaks you can have, how the breaks are actually being scheduled, how long the breaks are. So many good information, which many times we trying to chase a YouTube video or someone in other forums to tell us, but eventually it's all on the PMI website. So my kind of advice to you, go and check what is in the PMI website in the first place. And after that, first you have a little kind of information, then you try to seek for trusted sources where people are not just pushing you to buy something, but eventually trying to give you information to make sure there is more clarity. Now, this PMP booster is technically part of our study group, so most likely you join through our study group, which is in LinkedIn. This is the place where we are sharing lots of information together with my other coaches as well, namely Torge and Ricardo as well. We're trying to give you guys as much clarity as possible. Half of the advices we're giving you is based on what is on the PMI website. The other half is based on our experience working with people and helping them to pass the exam. And I think that is very, very valuable because sometimes, we're receiving feedback from a colleague who passed the exam. But again, that does not mean if you pass that you become like a PMP professor right afterwards. Okay. And the main reason for that, because there is still lots of misinterpretation of information. For example, 97% of us still prepare exactly the same way. We make it an awful lot of long time of getting prepared for the exam, but you do not need that much of time because we just have to go what to expect. Same thing goes in terms of what are the best materials. PMI explicitly say, you need to have a PEM Book 7, Process Practice Guide, Agile Practice Guide as a bare minimum. Now, there are still people who believe that getting the latest PEM Book Guide will be plenty enough, and, they spend endless time to reading it, whereas we know that you're only going to have a few questions on that. So, make long story short, this initiative of the PMP Espresso as part of the study group is really help you to providing a place where you're going to be able to get clarity, also meet accountability, having a community, and also having experts around where you're going to be able to ask questions. Now, the reason why I'm, really would like to phrase it this way, because, for you guys, having any question towards the PMP, feel free to contact me or Ricardo or Torge. Sending a message, asking a question costs $0. Okay, so feel free to do that because many of us just simply sometimes be afraid to ask a question. Yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Shoot me the question if you have. I'm happy to give you some guidance how to move forward based on where you are. But overall, we all working towards the secret sauce, which secret sauce is to passing it in 8 weeks. Again, this is not 14 days, this is not 20 days or 30 days, where some people might giving you different commitment. I think 8 weeks is a medium-sized commitment where you because you have to incorporate, your day-to-day life, your 9 to 5, your work, your family, your other activities, and you need to make sure you're fetching in all this together and dedicating time for the studies as well. And I think some extent that's one of the biggest bottlenecks for people to understand how to plan for this exam prep, and that's something I'm also planning to address today. I'm giving you a solution, which is namely I'm going to host a next workshop next Wednesday to going into the lowest level of details of 8 week study plan. But overall, that will save you 4 weeks in the exam prep on its own. So that's something which is ahead of us next week. Now, I mentioned that, I like to give my advice based on what is available in PMI and also my experiences. But, altogether, some of you might know me that my experience come from failures, that I failed these 2 times. It took me 3 years to get it done. And after, having so many boot camps, online courses, books, and many other materials, I realized that any new material will not help me. Okay. And I can wait for the next, exam change. That will not help me either. So I have to realize that the answers which I'm looking at is in down into the PMI mindset, because the quicker I'm able to understand what the mindset is, aka what is the PMI logic, that will make my life easier. And eventually that's helped me, and that's already helped 700 plus people to also do the same. So yeah, take every advice with a little pinch of salt. We already know that PMI will not ask you anything and everything. Do not trying to become a professor. Make sure you understand what the exam represents and how to pass, what it takes to get to a higher passing percentage. Okay? Now, in terms of the learning, because we're going to jump right to the learning because we already have 10 minutes past, is that we're going to focus on conflict resolution technique. Now, this is an area which PMI emphasize a lot because you're going to have conflicts inevitably on Agile, you're going to have conflicts inevitably on Waterfall. You have to solve both conflicts on both sides of the coin, and that's why I would say inevitably one of the most important topics for the PMP exam. This is touching different soft skills as well. In Waterfall is also linked to communications, also linked to stakeholders as well. They are all come together, how to managing, conflicts within the team, within stakeholders as well. And so as with the Agile, and also some part of it is also explained in Scrum as well. Going into the techniques, you need to see that, first of all, trying to envision where those conflicts are coming from, and this is where you can leverage your real life experience. This is where your real life experience will help you a lot in this case, because conflicts really can come from poor communication, unrealistic expectations, poor time management, unclear roles and responsibilities, schedule priorities, or personal reasons. Now, most of these conflicts are technically related to a plan which is incomplete. Um, Without proper planning, you cannot prepare for the unexpected. So that's why I would say all of these root cause, all these kind of issues or conflicts can root down into a poor planning. But what PMI is saying is that so the resolution of each conflict should fall under some categorization. And these categories are the following and can be applicable for every single conflict you have. And every conflict on the extent needs to be categorized to make sure that we know how we're going to handle them. So number one, withdraw and avoid, smooth and accommodate, compromise and reconcile, force and direct, collaborate and problem solve. Now, out of these five, the least preferable by PMI is going to be forcing, because forcing is always going to be a one-person decision making, something which PMI never like to do. That is a very rare occasion when you're really directing something or forcing something, very rare scenarios. But again, do not try to look for those scenarios in your PMP prep materials, because most likely you're not going to find them. This is exactly an area which you're going to learn through practice, through questions itself. And before you ask, there's nothing wrong with that, is eventually built that way, because every learning material will tell you all the theory you need, but they never tell us how to implement it and how to use it and implement it towards the PMP exam and any challenging questions. Okay? So really, just remember, force and directing is very rarely a good one, whereas withdrawing, avoid, smooth, accommodate, compromise, reconcile, collaborate, problem solve are the ones which we are actually looking at. Okay? But let's go into a little bit on when to use it kind of category. So let's go with withdraw and avoid. So individuals involved in the conflict are not influential stakeholders. So someone who will not care much, or someone who's actually been trying to be withhold with the position. You do not have time to investigate. Now, this is something which is very interesting because if you don't have time to investigate, PMI say you withdraw and avoid, whereas on real life, you might gonna say we're just forcing something that, okay, we're not dealing this problem. We have a cutover tonight. We're gonna deal with it afterwards. But here is the thing. If you have a solution for next step, so the example, conflict is two people in the team having a conflict. We have a major cutover tonight. What shall we do? Now, in this case, PMI will say you do not have time to investigate, so you withdraw. So you can say as a project manager, we're not dealing with this conflict right now. We're going to deal this afterwards, after the cutover. Now, in that case, that's why it's withdrawal and avoid, because you have a solution that, after the cutover, you're dealing with it. Now it's withdrawal. But if you just simply say, we're not dealing with this at all, that's more likely to going into the forcing category or a directing category. Okay? An intense argument has already happened and the individual needs to cool off. We do not have enough information pursue for other techniques. So many times it can be that you might hear, one side of the story, and in that case you would like to explore more. In that case, for the person who actually approached you first, you can say that I would like to, let's say, let's withdraw this from now because I would like to hear the story from the other side. Yeah? Not sure. So far, it was all making sense. If yes, can you give me a quick thumbs up into the chat, or you can, raise your hand, and if you have a question, we can also discuss that. Good, good, good. So I have one thumbs up there, which I'm very happy about. Two. Excelente. Now you have the smooth and accommodate. Now you don't have time to deal with the problem, which is you do not have time to investigate. Now every decision should come with some type of investigation before. So that's why you see investigating first, or you don't have time. So you're always trying to gather more information on the extent. You require a temporary solution to the problem. So that's why we can smooth and accommodate. Now, the smoothing is, the problem is still there, but we not dealing with it, Uh, what can be a good example of it is, for example, you go with your car to a park, and in the park, you walk with your dog and you have a flat tire when you're coming back to the car park. Now you fix the tire, so you put the flat tire into your car, which means in this case, in a conflict resolution perspective, we are just smoothing it because you continue driving with your car with the flat spare tire in the back, which anytime anything can happen. So that's why this can be challenging. But I prepared some questions which will give you more clarity on this area. Okay. Or the conflict is minor and involve less influential stakeholders. Again, things are getting slightly complicated, but again, if we just dealing with this problem on a surface level, that is just still smoothing. Compromising, now this is where things are started to be more interesting because all parties are involved and need a win. You have an equal relationship with both parties and you need a temporary solution. So compromise, in very simple terms, both parties will give up something and we align what to do next. That's why it's compromise versus reconcile. Whereas smoothing, we're not dealing with the problem right now, we're just kind of pushing it to deal with that later. So that's the main difference between compromising versus smoothing. Force and direct. Now, the only option where this might be a feasible solution when you need a quick solution. Yeah. If I need a quick solution, I need it right now. I cannot wait. I cannot delay. That's when you might gonna utilize the force and direct kind of conflict resolution technique. But remember, this is never really a good solution by PMI. They never prefer this. You know that one party is right, the conflict is not very important, or the relationship with the stakeholder is not essential. Again, as you guys can see, the characteristic for something to be forced should be, let's say, very, very minimal, because otherwise that's something which PMI don't like at all. On Agile, you remember only one leadership style, which is servant leadership. Now, servant leadership is never aligned with forcing and directing. Does not exist. Whereas that's why, on Waterfall, you can have certain situations where I would say that's your last line of defense, or you need a quick solution. That might be one which would be important. Okay. Collaborate or problem solve. You must incorporate multiple viewpoints. Influential stakeholders are involved. Consensus is required, and you want to distribute responsibility. Altogether, this is one of the most confusing part because between compromising and collaboration, so this is where we are having a thin borderline between what is what, yeah? Because collaborating and problem solving, so compromising. So here are both sides. We explain the story. Both sides give up something. That's compromising. Collaborating, we all having the problem, and we together trying to find a solution without giving up anything and everything. That's the main difference between the two. Whereas compromising, both sides needs to give up something to reach a common alignment. Whereas collaborating, we not give up on anything. We just trying to find a solution together. And the keyword is doing it together versus compromising that, okay, we both give up something, so we're living with a little bit of a bitter taste on the mouth that it wasn't really, let's say, the best. Is that make sense so far? With the thumbs up, I know that you guys are on the same page with me. Or if you have a question, feel free to put it into the chat or voice it over. But I guess you guys definitely would like to see some some examples to make sure you guys can envision this. Well done, excellente. So before living into the questions, I think this is also showing that the best in the PMP is all about having that right level of clarity. And here I'm going to give you an example of one of my students who did the boot camp. She was not feeling ready. She was studying 3 to 4 months, and she always felt like something was missing. But at the end of the day, what was really missing from her is a clarity on what to expect on the exam and how to prepare. I think that's a very common challenge that most project managers, we are actually having an idea that we know how to deliver a project at our job, but in terms of PMP, we hit the bumpy road because it's just hard to envision how to do it because it's a completely different project than what we do real life. But at the end of the day, it's all about the clarity to understand what to study, when to study, how to study, what's the weekly goal to achieve that. And that is something I'm going to address next week, Wednesday, with a 90 minutes workshop. And I'm going to go into the lowest level of details of how to plan how to create your study plan within 8 weeks, what to study and when to study, because that are the key components of you're going to get there to the exam over all the other people. Now, let's practice what we learn, because that's really the theme of this part. And before we going in, maybe something you might gonna take a screenshot. Because what I mean by that, so there is a pattern with the PMI question. So that's why we are able to prepare 80-90% passing rate, because we know what we go against. Because technically PMI is asking two different things. They're gonna rather asking you a best practice question, or they're gonna ask you a specific question. Now, what I mean by that, if you look for keywords, if the keywords are saying they're looking for a characteristic or looking for something which is not, what should you do first? That's simply, in case of Waterfall, PMI wants you to have an understanding of what is the next step in the process. Or what should you do next is also similar, nothing special about it. If you know how Agile Scrum works, or what is the 49 process, how they connected with each other in Waterfall, that will make it a lot easier. Whereas on a specific question, when you have to deal with a specific problem, I have 2 weeks delay, I need to solve 2 weeks delay. Looking into the Agile mindset or the PEN Book 7 Waterfall principles will not solve you the 2 weeks delay. You need to find a solution for the 2 weeks delay, and that's what I meant by a specific question. Okay, so PMI questions on the exam I categorize somewhere like this way. How do I know? After you're doing a lots of PMI study hall questions, you realize that the questions are really focusing on either something very specific or more best practice. Like, again, I'm not reinventing the wheel, just giving you the information in a way that is easier to consume. Then going into the next one, and before we're looking into the questions, so each question, so questions fall under categories, and also there are certain theories. In particular, this spreadsheet, if you have a printout of this, you put it side by side with your questions, you're gonna answer 9 out of 10 correctly. That's how powerful that is, because PMI has certain set of rules, processes, plans, and on top they're making assumptions. And if assumption A is correct, then we go assumption B is correct as well. Give you a good example. Not sure that you guys know what is the best contract type in Agile. Well, I think none of us know really, because the best practice never tell you. They only say that you choose the best contract type, which is in line with the value delivery. Now, this is fantastic news, but how do I know what is the best contract on Agile? Well, you have to follow the principles. The principles are saying that on Agile, we delivering the value quicker, faster, whether doing an Agile project with a fixed start, fixed end, or we're doing it on an iteration basis. So technically we deliver it endlessly, we can say. Now, what are the contract types which are supporting that? If you have a fixed start, fixed end date, obviously a fixed price contract will be the best bet or best solution to use. Or you have something on the iteration basis. Now, since on Agile you have resources always 100% of the time working for you, it's simply very much easier to go with the time and material. That's exactly what you need. You need to connecting the dots together between how PMI is saying things. If you're making assumption A, then assumption B is correct, and overall everything will be correct. But that's why you need to practice more the questions than you learning and reading and watching videos and taking 100 notes again. Trying to focusing on how to envision the exam altogether. All right. So we're gonna do some questions. And what I'm going to do, or what I would like to ask you, is please participate. Make sure you add the correct answer into the chat. I mean, if you don't know the correct answer, that's fine. I'm not going to call out anyone, but the more you practice, the better you're going to get at it. Now, here is the first one. Which conflict management approach is best suited for situation where much is not known and currently the time and research and resolve the conflict is not available? Again, like with every question, you need to clarify. Is this a waterfall? Is this an agile or hybrid question? You're searching for keywords. After that, you need to see what's the next step or use the elimination technique. Now, if you know the correct answer, please put it into the chat for me. Where my phone with so we have one answer. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's just taking a quick screenshot. Yes, sir. That's amazing. Okay, so we have one for A. Any other option? Anyone? Mm, yeah. Perfecto. Okay, so you have one for A, one for C. All right. So let me do, what is the pen? The pen is here. Okay. So we have a conflict and much is not known. That's the key thing. And we don't have time to research whatsoever. Now, the tricky thing with questions is not necessarily black and white, is waterfall and agile. Almost technically a category which is not exclusive for waterfall and agile. It almost doesn't matter as well because you need to solve it. Now, what we can eliminate is you definitely cannot force it or directing it, which is amazing. But in that case, can you accommodate and smooth it? Well, maybe. Can you compromise this? Now, the compromise, what we discussed with compromise, that both sides will give up something to move forward. Now, here we're not giving up anything. Is a big demand. We don't know much, and there is no time to research. So there is nothing to compromise because we explicitly say we don't have time for this. So the correct answer will lie between B and C. Now, your job on the exam, make sure you eliminate two answers first. And after that, you read the question one more time, and then you read the remaining two answers. Now, this is how you're going to speed up things and increase your accuracy of correctly answering questions. Which conflict management approach is best suited for situations much not known and currently there's no time to research and resolve the conflict? So technically, we're moving ahead, we're not listening to anyone, and we're not doing anything. So there is nothing to accommodate, there is nothing to smooth, because technically, most likely we're going to deal with this later, and that's why this is going to be a withdraw and avoid. Okay? Very good. We have a couple of good answers. Any question with this? If no question, can you give me a quick thumbs up? Good. I hope this was very, very useful because that's how you need to interpret. First, you eliminate. Elimination, you eliminate two. After that, you just reading the question and the remaining answers. And remember, if I have to make a choice between only two answers, it's going to be way much more easier. Yeah, way much more easier. So very well done. Next one. Which is true about conflict in projects? Okay, now this is a lovely question. If you know the answer, you can put it into the chat. Which is true about conflict? Again, we don't know, so it's technically, it can be either waterfall or agile. All this needs to be solved. And if you're looking into the answers, so too much conflict reflects pooling on the team. This is a maybe. Too much conflict reflects poorly on a PM. Phew, okay. Conflict is inevitable. Conflict is to be addressed only when disrupt the project. Well, that's something I think we can both agree that this is not good. Now, to better understand this answer, yeah, and even the question, so you need to read the question and you say, which is true about conflict in projects? Now, this is a very general statement, yeah? One rule here, if you have a general question, you need a general answer or a best practice answer or like a definition, something which is true all the time. Now, this is exactly the same because if I'm going to read again, so we eliminated D, okay? And you say A, B, and C. So A, too much conflict reflects pooling on the team, and automatically you read it, you say it depends. Too much conflict reflects poorly on the project manager, it depends. Whereas conflict is inevitable, meaning that this is a very general, very standard statement, same as the question itself. So make the long story short, very well done. D is the correct, sorry, C, C is the correct answer, yeah? Okay. Anyone any question with this? If not, then just give me a quick thumbs up into the chat. Now, this is especially an area where you need to practice. That's exactly why you need to practice more and more questions because simply reading the book or going through your course will not get you into this. You need to practice against time, practice against the understanding and understanding the breakdown. Okay. So that's why it's going to be super important. Now, going into this, and which unfortunately will not have much more time because what I promise, 30 minutes will save you 3 hours in the studies. So there is a new way of preparing for the PMP. Yeah. So, and that is, I would say that is all about the clarity we have. You do not need more learning material, that's for sure. But to get this done in 8 weeks, what you need is a step-by-step guide, finding the right answers, the right questions for the exam, but you're most likely going to come back, and also understanding the PMI mindset. Now, once you have that, technically, what you're going to have is just passing the exam. Very simply, you passing the exam, almost no complications, but that will make your life super easy. Now, if I'm going to go into this 3 piece of secret, now the first one is going to be the step-by-step guide, and that's what I'm planning to address in next week. So next week, Wednesday, I'm hosting this workshop. Now, this workshop is going to be very unique because I'm going to give away a study plan, which you're also going to discuss. I'm going to give away the recording of the session, so you're going to be able to go back and reference it later on. So as I'm going to give you a full access to my simulator, which has over 1,000 plus questions. Now, this is going to happen next week, Wednesday. I put the registration link into the chat. There is a little cost, so there is like $37 for a seat, but with that 90 minutes will set you success to passing the exam. If if you are in the US, you're going to be able to pass it before Thanksgiving. For anyone else, if you're starting today, most likely mid-November, you're going to be, or even earlier, you can be PMP certified and getting done and dusted. Now with Cynthia, we talked about it in the beginning, the exam most likely will change next year. So I think the sooner the better we get it, is going to be all done itself. And yeah, looking into the chat, you're getting it done in December. I think you can get it done way much sooner than that. But that step-by-step plan will give you even the roadmap of how to consume the learning material, which altogether can be a tedious big task of watching 35 hours videos or reading an entire book. But you need to see, it's all down to the breakdown because we don't want it to become a PMP professor. We just wanted to pass it. All right. So with that, if you're not connected on LinkedIn, yeah, feel free to reach me out. If you're not part of the study group, you can also find it as PMP Study Group by Gabo Stramp. We're going to host a series of events in the upcoming weeks. Okay, so if I'm going to quickly show it to you. So we have a lots of events coming up, meaning that, let me show you here. So in terms of events, we have events coming up for next week, Monday, Tuesday as well. So next week, Monday, Torge will talk about stakeholder matrix, and on Tuesday he will talk about Monte Carlo analysis, which is leading towards to the Wednesday to make sure that we're having this 90 minutes workshop. All this is actually being shared. The Zoom links are here. You're going to be able to click on that. But the way you're going to be able to get the best info or be up to date everything which is happening, go into our PMP study group on LinkedIn, again, it's free to join. We have lots of information, great content to share with you in conjunction to make sure you understand what to expect on the exam. A little bit of cardiac coaching as well as usual with my friend Marcus, but it's all about the clarity. This week we hosted like 4 sessions and more to come in this week, including some questions as well from Torge and Ricardo. All right. So with that, thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next week or on Wednesday on the session. All right. Bye-bye.